Well, good morning, Lionhearts. Your old pal Jordan the Lion. Today we have what I think is a vlog that is extremely meaningful. It's someone who broke a lot of barriers, someone who had one of the most beautiful voices in history, and he died way too young. Today we're going to visit the grave of Nat King Cole, which was not actually technically his real name. But we're going to stop at Soup Plantation on the way because our good pals over there sent me a free coupon for my birthday and I haven't been there forever and it's on the way, so I figured, you know, why not? So let's go. Soup Plantation, then Forest Lawn, Glendale. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. Well, that's right, Lionhearts. Tomorrow is my birthday, and I haven't quite decided exactly what I want to do for it. I have about 3 ideas, but I'm just trying to keep the cost down. Since I'm going to be heading out of the country pretty soon, I'm going to try and keep it under like $50. I'm not going to like splurge or do anything huge. I'm not really one of those type of people anyway, so. But I've had a couple of cool ideas, and you always want to make every birthday memorable, so we'll do something cool. But yeah, thank you, Soup Plantation, for thinking of me. You know, really, as long as I get to hang out with this guy, every day is a birthday, kinda. Last night, in the middle of the night, I woke up and he was laying with his body here, laying across my shoulder, and his face was laying across my face right here. I think he likes me a little bit. And I was pretty stoked because yesterday in the mail, well, when I came home, there was a box sitting outside my door and it was from my mom. She told me that she was sending me something and she said, do not open it before your birthday. But when it came, she had sent me some pasta sauce from one of the best restaurants from where we live, and one of the jars had shattered, and so the corner of the box was like all pasta sauce, so I had to open it. Sorry, Mom, I couldn't help it. But in that package was not only the pasta sauce, but she also sent me some Skyline chili. Yeah, good times. So also, Breck mentioned to me the other day when he was over here, actually 2 things. He was saying he's considering moving out of California and selling his house, for one, which was kind of a shock. But 2, he said, hey, you know, I have that extra room. If you and John want to come stay for a couple of days and you want to do some vlogging down near my area, you're totally welcome to. So I'm thinking about it because I'd really love to go see the Huell-Hauser wing of Chapman University, and there's a cemetery down there. There's just a ton of stuff in Orange County, and if I were kind of stationed down there for a couple of days, it'd be a lot easier to get around, so thinking of doing that. Well, you can tell by this sign that we have made it to Forest Lawn, Glendale, and where we're actually heading to right now is we're going to the Court of Freedom, also referred to as the Freedom Mausoleum. Definitely one of the most beautiful cemeteries in California, or at least Southern California. And it's huge. As you're driving through here, it reminds me of the drive. Once you've like checked in at Hearst Castle, they take you on like a 15-minute drive up the hill, and this is what it reminds me of. Now, one of the stops I wanted to make once we came in here was actually right here, because I had just vlogged the fallen David that's now down at Cal State Fullerton, and some people had said, I thought that was not at the Cypress Hill Cemetery, but that was at Forest Lawn. No, there is another one at this Forest Lawn indeed, but as you can tell, it's all still in one piece. We're actually not too far right now. And I'll show you a few other famous graves while we're here on the way, as I run into them. Some of these I've shown before when I came here in the past for other vlogs, but I know not everybody's seen them. So there's Casey Stengel, the great manager, Hall of Famer. Now, considering who our subject is today, the great Nat King Cole, I think it's extremely, extremely appropriate to read this. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves. and with all nations. Now the reason I say that is because Nat King Cole was really the first mainstream artist who really had to deal with a lot of trying to break through the color barriers at that time, and really paid the price for it in some ways, and I'll tell you that when we get to the grave. Here's a great Thomas Jefferson statue. Isn't that a true work of art? Now where Nat's buried is actually straight ahead. That's the Freedom Mausoleum, all the way down there where the George Washington statue is. And of course we have to put this amazing mosaic over here that's commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So well done. I mean, dude, come on. Right here you can see a sign that tells us when we get down there that the statue of George Washington was there. It's John Quincy Adams Ward's statue of Washington and the great chain that Washington placed across the Hudson River to block the passage of British ships. See that chain right there? The Liberty chain. There he is. Mr. Washington. Here we go. Well, you see the Little Mermaid, so you know we're at Walt Disney's grave. See right there, Walter Elias Disney. Well, there's George and Gracie, together again. Now there lies Nat King Cole, originally born Nat Coles. He got his talent from basically his mother. His mother was a great pianist, and by the age of 4 years old, Nat King Cole, known then as Nat Coles, was playing gospel songs on the piano. By the age of 10, he was already winning awards in the neighborhood, entering contests, and you know, throughout his entire teen years, he was just the greatest musician there was in that area. And he ended up playing a lot of piano. He actually started out wanting to be a jazz musician, like having his own jazz trio, guitar, drums, and piano, much like Earl Hines. And he would actually get to perform with Earl Hines. But it was actually when he joined his brother's band, when he was 17 years old, that he changed his name. His brother had dropped the S from their name. Nat liked the look of it and did the same thing. They ended up forming a little jazz band together. They cut a couple of songs on Decca Records, and then to make ends meet, they got jobs doing working on like a theater production. They were doing the music for Shuffle Along, and when Shuffle Along announced that they were moving the production out to Los Angeles, his brother didn't want to go, but Nat did, because he was in love with a chorus girl and just thought that this would be a good move. So he moved out to Hollywood, eventually married that girl, and within 3 weeks of coming out here, the show was canceled. It was closed because somebody stole the money. So eventually Nat formed a band out here. They were playing at a place on North La Brea, and that's where he added the king to his name. One of the band members one day came in with a crown, threw it on his head, and said, "Old King Cole was a merry old soul," and started singing the song, and the next thing you know, he became Nat King Cole. You know, it was interesting because he kept performing as the Nat Cole Trio for a long time, and then signed a deal with Capitol Records, which ended up becoming pretty beneficial, because at that point Capitol Records was a nobody, and they took a chance on him and people like Les Paul, and those two actually did an impromptu gig together, which was pretty cool. They said that they just showed up and started playing together on stage, and it was a hit. And Nat King Cole, you know, in these days was not even a singer. Can you believe that? He never intended to be a singer. He was just this phenomenal jazz
pianist that people said, you know, when you watched him, other people look like they're really trying, and he looked like it was just effortless, like his fingers would just glide off the keys. But it was one day they were playing a club, and the club owner said, I'm not paying you unless somebody sings. And so Nat started singing, and everybody loved it. And the next thing you know, Nat King Cole was now singing. He was no longer just this, you know, jazz trio leader. He was able to reach a much broader audience by starting to record songs. And his first hit was, believe it or not, Get Your Kicks on Route 66. Now after that, he would end up recording Nature Boy and would have a hit with that. And of course, we would know him for Mona Lisa and Tenderness and Unforgettable and A Christmas Song and all those beautiful songs. But Mona Lisa is a song he didn't even want to do. When the owner of Capitol Records' brother wrote it and they brought it to him, he's like, Mona Lisa, I'm not doing this. So the guys actually had to come over and perform it for him at his house. And then he agreed to do it. But speaking of his house, Nat King Cole raised a lot of eyebrows because you have to remember this was the time of segregation, and a lot of the places that he was playing, like hotels, casinos, clubs, and things like that, he could perform there, but he couldn't even sleep there. He wasn't allowed to stay in the hotels that he performed at. And so he was dealing with all this racism and all those kind of things, and he ended up buying a house in Highland Park, which was a pretty ritzy lawyer doctor neighborhood. And the people in the community actually held a meeting and voiced all their grievances with why they didn't want him there. And one person actually stood up and said, it's nothing personal, we just don't want undesirables here. We want to keep undesirables out of our neighborhood. And Nat said, I'm with you, I want to keep the undesirables out of the neighborhood too. So he refused to leave. They poisoned his dog, they burned crosses on his yard, they wrote, racial epitaphs on his property, and yet he stayed, but he wasn't paying taxes. He was letting his wife just furnish their house as beautifully as possible, and they weren't paying any taxes. So he got really, really behind, like over $150,000 behind on taxes, and they almost took his house. But he managed to work out an agreement where he would pay like $20,000 down, and then future songs from Capitol Records would pay off the rest. But he also dealt with segregation in the way that, like I said, when he would go perform places, he had this beautiful velvety voice, and yet people would boo him and things because they didn't like the look of him. They thought that they couldn't buy into a suave black man, which is just, now is almost ridiculous to think that you couldn't see the talent beyond something that trivial. But he had to deal with this a lot, and I mean a lot. As far as one night he went on stage where he was born in Alabama. He was born in Alabama, and eventually his family moved when he was young to Chicago, and that's where he really developed his music. But when he went back to Alabama to perform, the lights went up one night at a performance, and 6 guys started creeping onto the stage, and they were trying to, some say try and kidnap him, some say try and just beat him to death, and they started grabbing his leg, and he pulled away, and finally, everything just turned into a huge melee, and he ended up getting vilified by some leaders of the black community. Primarily, Thurgood Marshall called him basically an Uncle Tom, because after the incident, Nat said, I don't blame the people of this area. I blame those individuals, and the fact that he wasn't more, outraged or more angry of what had happened kind of infuriated people. And eventually Nat had his own TV show called The Nat King Cole Show, and people, they said they couldn't even get sponsors for it. No companies wanted to sponsor it because, they didn't think people would buy into a black man hosting his own show. And so after just a few weeks, when even the band members were taking pay cuts to keep it on the air, Nat himself said, you know what? I'm canceling the show. If nobody wants to fund the show, they don't want to pay for the show, then that just proves that Madison Avenue's afraid of the dark. And he was a lifelong smoker. Unfortunately, he smoked over 3, almost 4 packs of cigarettes a day from the time he was 14 on. He never really could quit, and unfortunately this led to his body at the end just withering away to nothing. People said they would see him and they would start crying when they saw him because his body was just caving in. And I mean, if you look up there, born in 1919, passed away in 1965. I mean, come on, that's not even 50 years old, and he was gone. But as most of us know, his legend lives on. They even call Capitol Records Tower the house that Nat built, and we're going to go over there in a little bit. But of course, we know that Nat King Cole had a daughter who became famous for doing a duet with him. They did Unforgettable together, so there you go. A little bit of the history of the great Nat King Cole. He, one of the interesting things about him was that he, contrary to probably what would happen now, is he was drafted and they turned him away. They F4'd him because they said he had flat feet, and he was actually, he kind of saw humor in it and was kind of embarrassed by it and ended up doing a song about it, about being turned away for having flat feet. So kind of crazy that the person who, I would say other than Frank Sinatra has maybe the most beautiful, perfect voice of all time, didn't ever plan to even be a singer. And I saw where there was an interview with his wife, right there, Maria. That was, I believe that was wife number 2. She said, he was just one of those guys that he said he didn't want to quit smoking because he thought that's what gave his voice that gravelly tone. And so, in the end, he ended up paying for it and was buried in a tuxedo with a huge outpouring of people that came out to see him here. And now, like I said, he's highly regarded as, one of the greatest crooners of all time. If you go back and listen to any of the Nat Cole trio, I mean, a lot of people would say he was one of the best jazz pianists of all time because he took what the people that he admired were doing and he pushed it even a little further and made something new out of it. So he was an extremely talented guy. They said his only real problem was that he took everything personal. He couldn't see that when things were happening, like the racism, like they were trying to get him out of Hancock Park. I think I said Highland Park, I meant Hancock Park. When they were trying to get him out of Hancock Park, he didn't see that as like a racist act. He saw that as they wanted him personally out. And when people booed him, he didn't see it as they're booing a black man, which is what, his wife would say. She said, I didn't take it personally because I knew that it was ignorance. But she said Nat unfortunately took everything personal as though they didn't like him, and that was unfortunate. Now, since we're right over here, I'll show you right below him is Gene Raymond. Since I told you I'd point out some other famous graves. And then right here is a little bust statue to Alan Ladd, who's also buried right here. I'll show you. Now here's Alan Ladd's grave with his wife Sue Carol Ladd. And if you didn't see my vlog on him, I did a pretty fascinating vlog about him and how he got started with a tiny hamburger shop that was named Tiny's after his nickname. And Sue Carol Ladd was actually a woman who was an actress turned agent, met him, fell in love with him, and basically got him all of his work. And then right below Alan Ladd is Rex Bell, married to Miss Clara Bow Bell, the Hollywood it girl, Clara Bow. So right there, you have a bunch of famous people all right there. Rest in peace, Nat King Cole. As long as we have a Christmas still around, people will be hearing your beautiful voice singing chestnuts roasting on an open fire. There's Ben Franklin. Another George Washington. Now let's head out of here. I want to take us over to Capitol Records and I'm going to show you the house that Nat built, as well as this beautiful mural that they have on the side of the building in memorial of him and his contributions to Capitol Records and the music scene. It was actually thanks to Nat King Cole. It was him who stood up and refused to perform in Las Vegas if they didn't allow him to stay in the hotel that he was performing at, and ended up getting that changed.
Kind of appropriate that Nat King Cole would be buried here at the Court of Freedom when you read that below. A reminder to all Americans of the battles of mind and war which were fought to establish freedom for you and your families. With God's help, can the Americans of today do less? Oh, that's interesting. I never knew they had this. The Press Memorial honoring war correspondents who gave their lives in World War II. I didn't know that was here. Well, I haven't been here in a long time, but I love this place, so fun return. Oh, and the line's empty too. Lots of options. All right, good times. That's a ton of salad, but it is salad. Well, thank you, Soup Plantation. Nice to see all of our years of friendship have paid off for my benefit. Now, what do I do for you on your birthday? That's the question. Well, I said we were going to a cemetery, but the one in front of us is not what I meant. Look at that, how sad. The little remaining memory of Toys R Us. I bet there ain't a thing in there. Let's go look in the window. Wah, 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 wah. I don't know if I ever told you guys how big of a Toys R Us fan I was as a kid, but I just absolutely loved coming in here because as soon as you would walk in these doors, when I grew up, there was immediately like an entire walkway that you had to make all the way around just to get to anything, and it was all like guilty pleasure buys, like whoopee cushions, hand buzzers, and like all the nonsense, like the silly putty and all that stuff. I always loved going through there, and now there's nothing left. Dang. We are closed forever, unless you're in Canada, Europe, or Asia. And now, Jeffrey has no one to play with. I almost wish I could have one of those little signs that says we are closed forever. Fun fact, I read online that they are no longer selling CDs in Best Buy anymore. Weird to think of. Unfortunately, I had to buy a new microphone for my camera. It's seriously so hard to think of now, but they said that the reason nobody wanted to sponsor Nat's TV show is because they said that they believed that no white men would want a black man crooning and singing love songs to their wives through the TV. Think about that. Well, there it is. The house that Nat built. And just to let him know he's not forgotten, they have this beautiful, beautiful mural out here of all these jazz greats, including Miles Davis. But right there in the dead center is the man who brought in the most money, that moved this tower from being in a small little shop on the corner of Sunset and Vine. If you go back and watch my vlog called Wallach's Music Store, that's where the original Capitol Records is, and I kind of go into it there. But it was actually Nat King Cole who made so much money for this place they were able to build that tower. Thank you for your contribution. Hard to believe that this guy never saw himself as a singer. Wow. There's Billie Holiday over there. That's right, dude. Look how excited you are. You can smell it. We just got an Amazon package. Thank you, Marianne Bazinet. She sent Josh some food. Listen to him. Listen to him. You don't like that stuff, do you? Do you like it? Wow. Yeah, you just made a friend for life. Thank you very much. That was very nice of you. Well, can you tell he likes it? He's a very picky eater, actually. He really is. I mean, he will find things he likes, and then after a couple of times of having it, he'll just turn his nose up and not eat it, but he loves that stuff, so thank you very much. Alright, Lionhearts, we're going to call it a day. I wanted to thank Betty Carter for becoming my newest Patreon, and I wanted to also thank a big thank you to Mr. Jeff Block. He has a YouTube channel called Creaties. It's C-R-E and then 80, like is in the 1980s, and with an S at the end. And he is the man who's responsible for the new intro that I've been using. He made that out of the goodness of his own heart, and I love it. And he's made some for the Carpetbagger as well, and I'm just so honored that he was able to really capture what, you know, I think the spirit of the channel is. So I wanted to send a big shout out, thank you to him. And I wanted you to think about something. One of the interesting things that I wanted to mention about this vlog was a reoccurring theme just kept coming up over and over and over as I was kind of researching what I wanted to introduce you to Nat King Cole. And one of the things was that he was selling tons of records. And for me, that just kept begging the question, like, why would people have a problem with him being on TV? Why would people have a problem with him doing this or that? And somebody finally said, in an interview, somebody said, they didn't mind hearing Nat King Cole, but they didn't want to see him. I think that's totally disheartening. I think that's just one of those things, like, I sure hope that we are completely past that kind of stuff in history, because I can't even imagine. He was, you know, from everything I read, just a real laid back, nice, polite, shy guy. And man, to kind of go through all the things that he went through and then to die at such a young age, I mean, he left. I'm glad that he's so well remembered because of the legacy that he left. You know, I can't say enough nice things about him. So thank you for watching. Have a great night, and go listen to some Nat King Cole. Do yourself a favor. Have a great night. Goodbye.